welcome to another episode of the Coaches Club podcast brought to you by halftimecuppa.com. My name is Danny Cook and I'm really pleased to bring you another fantastic episode. Today we're featuring a fantastic guest in Lipa Nessa, who I'm going to introduce very, very shortly. Before we get into the meat of today's episode, you can, of course, catch up on any of our previous ones on iTunes now. Just searching Halftime Cuppa, and it'll be one of the two podcast series that appear on your screen. Alternatively, you can find us on YouTube as well. Same principle applies. Just type in Halftime Cuppa, and up comes the podcast. And then finally, our website as well at halftimecuppa.com. So without further ado, I would like to, with absolute pleasure, welcome Lipa Nessa. How are you, Lipa?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So how are you keeping at the moment with no football on? What are you getting up to?
I'm having withdrawal symptoms. I, I've forgotten what my hobbies are other than football. Like you take football out of my life, and it's like, oh, I actually do nothing but football. It really puts life into perspective. But I picked up other hobbies, like painting,
Oh, very
literature.
nice.
But
Very
that's
nice.
about it, to be honest.
Oh,
I just want
fantastic.
football back.
Oh, don't we all? Don't we all? No, I completely share that. I think the first couple of days of lockdown, I was like, I've got this time. Like, what do I do? Like, it's really strange to have that kind of experience when football's your whole life. Um,
Literally.
yeah,
Like
really
normally it's
strange.
like a game, one game after the other, but now it's just like, oh, we're in drought and there's nothing. Like I'm
It's
in the back
mm,
garden playing football, thinking, oh, um, is this going to be my life for the next couple of months? But we do have to realize that, it's our duty to stay home and keep safe and listen to the advice from healthcare professionals and the government.
love that. Love that. Got it in early. Perfect. Well done. You've done
Need
you've
to
done
cover
your
my
bit.
back.
We covered it. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, certainly something I'm sure everyone's going through at the moment anyway. But how's the painting? What are you doing in terms of painting? Are you just doing like painting on paper, or are you painting walls, or...
Oh no. It's art, so painting on a watercolor paper. So I do watercolor paintings, pastel drawings. Um, I used to do a lot of art before football came about in my life 24/7. So I've kind of gone back to that. Kind of get all of my GCSE art resources out. Like, oh, okay, I never knew I'd done art. It's the old Lipper returning. So that's quite nice, for the mental wellness. But physical wellness, I still do play football outside. And yeah, it's important during these times to look after yourself, I guess.
Good. And family all okay? Everyone okay around you?
They're good. I
Perfect.
wish, like, having siblings around, younger siblings, and being the eldest, it's not great, but it's okay.
Have you played football against them yet? In
Oh,
the
yes. The amount of bruises we've all gotten.
I don't know if you saw. I think you were the one that actually retweeted it on Twitter. The video about playing your younger sibling,
Oh,
uh,
yes.
giving them like a 2-0 head start and then beating them 72-0 or 72-2 or something like that.
Yeah, so I've got a little sister. She hates football, but she can't hate football in this household. It's not on at all. So she does kick the football about here and there, and we do try and encourage her to play. And I let her have like one or two goals in, and then I'm there like, wait, hold on a moment. I never got this treatment. She is not getting this treatment. Bearing in mind, she is 9 and I'm like 21. So I'm absolutely thrashing this kid that hates football. And I feel so satisfied with myself. She will learn the hard way.
It is life goals, isn't it? Like the complete circle.
But I would like to comment, I'm not like this with my players who are literally in the same bracket. It's just sibling rivalry.
Just sibling rivalry is a unique thing, that's for certain. Anyway, on to the meat of today's session. Today's session. See, I've missed it so much. I'm talking sessions now. Today's podcast. So, Lipa, you mentioned about your obviously your artistic skills prior to you sort of falling in love with the game. Um, Talk us through how you fell in love with football and how you got into coaching. Really, where did it all begin?
So honestly, my first memory of football was when my parents gifted me this Tweenies character football. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the cartoon. You should
Yep.
be.
Yep.
If you don't know the cartoon, where were you? And it was
Legendary.
like literally, I used to eat with like the football used to sit with me whilst I was eating. I used to go to sleep with the football, and I was about 4 or 5 years old.
Yep.
And at that time I was still doing gymnastics, karate, netball, so football was just another add-on to
At
my
four, sorry, at 4 or 5 years old. That's
yeah.
incredible. Wow. That's amazing. Carry on.
And I was like, okay, another one wouldn't hurt, another sport wouldn't hurt. So I just continued to do that. And whilst moving schools and moving houses, football was a constant in my life, and it was always there for me. And then when I went up to middle school, I used to play football with the boys during lunch times and break times, and all the girls used to look at me like, why is she so obsessed with this game? And I went to high school, and it was the same thing. All after school clubs, every single sport after school club you could think of, I was on that team. And there were teachers fighting for me to go to cricket tournaments and football tournaments at the same time. And I realized during my transition from middle school to high school that football was the one. I always used to play football in the back garden, out and about with the local kids in my area, but I never took it seriously enough to consider me joining a proper team outside of school and outside that system. So, my dad used to always play football, so I was like, do you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's try and join a team. So I did join a team, and that's the reason for me joining a team was my PE teacher in high school kind of forced me to go. He was like, mate, you're too good. You need to get yourself to the local girls football club. I was like, I'm not that good. I play in my back garden. He was like gobsmacked. Like, I learned all of that by myself in my back garden. And then he was like, nah, you need to go. I'm going to tell your mum. So he like called up my mum and was like, this girl needs to go to the local girls football team. And they were so supportive. So I joined the team, and I was having a blast. And then when I went to university, I kind of chose a very big in football university called UCFB Wembley. And I think being in that environment where everyone around you loves sports, loves football, you're kind of engrossed in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was going to love coaching this much. I only chose my course because of the business side and not the coaching side. And then at the end of it, I'm still coaching.
So it's clearly worked out then. Still coaching.
Literally.
Um,
But the
Sorry.
first opportunity I got was in my second year of university.
Mhm.
That's where I built up my courage to actually take coaching seriously within a team. So that was my first time coaching for real, as I say.
Nice. So that was interesting, just on the UCFB part in particular. I mean, I've got so much different avenues I could go down, but I just wanted to sort of revisit this one quickly. Um, it's interesting that you chose it based off of the sports business side of it rather than the sports coaching. Why was that compared to other subjects that, say, UCFB offer or any other uni?
I wish I had a really good answer to this. So the way I chose my universities was by doing IPDIP. Now I
Yeah.
do not recommend this to anyone. at all. So I had my local university, UCFB, and the University of Loughborough.
Yeah.
So anyone would think, Loughborough's a Russell Group university, no brainer, let's go. But I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna play with destiny here, and I'm just gonna do, and let's see where it takes me. And I picked out UCFB, and I was like, okay, great. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I picked out a random course. So I went through their little the prospectus, and I was like,
This
whatever
is
page it
brilliant.
stops at, that's going to be my course.
Oh, that could have been amazing. Could you imagine? You could have gone to Loughborough and done French or something like that by accident. Oh wow,
I
that's
don't even
amazing.
know. Like, and it was the best mistake of my life.
That's interesting. You know what? I love that you've just said that's the best mistake of your life. Some people believe in destiny, and some people believe that these things, like everything, happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Just wonder if you sort of share that view. If you sort of by mistake ended up doing something that you absolutely love.
I feel like it was always meant to be. Like I always convinced myself it should be always for the business side. But when I was picking my course, after it all absorbed and I was buying all the stuff for university, I realized that doing the business side would help me in through the long term.
Yeah.
And there's more doors to business than there is in coaching. However, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Coaching football or whatever sports you coach can be transferable in the business setting. So when I say I coach football, people instantly are like, okay, so that means you could coach people. And they're like, maybe. And then they twist it around saying, no, yes, you can. You can coach people. If you could coach a 2-year-old to play football, you could coach a fully grown adult on how to use Microsoft Word. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then when someone told me that, I was like, okay, let's give the whole thing a go. And I put all my effort into this course. I went to any and every event, spoke to anyone and everyone that crossed my path.
Yeah.
And by chance, a person that I was in the UCFB women's football team with, she coached at a local grassroots club, and I was like, do you know what? Let's give it a go. So I plucked up the courage to say, can I have the contact number to whoever I need to contact to hopefully get some training onto a coaching position. And I wasn't doing this for money, not at all. I just wanted to do it for experience. And I never knew that the experience would turn into me absolutely loving it. So I joined this club, Kinja Football Club. Absolutely amazing. It's such an amazing club. Like the first day I went there, I had about 3 2-year-olds, and I was also coaching a bunch of 11-year-old girls. So yeah, they did not give me a light job. They were like, do you know what? You've come to coach, here you go. And that was probably the toughest day of me coaching ever. But that day made me realize that I can juggle 20 things at once, and I can do things that I tell myself I can't. So most of the stuff that I've told myself is all psychological. And that probably came from negative events that occurred from when I was a player. And then I didn't want that to happen to my players. So I made sure that my environment was so different. And my environment was a friendly place, a happy place, a place where the kids could come and talk to me if they had an issue in school or at home. So, yeah, I say I only coached football, but going back to what that person told me, I was actually coaching people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. And you know what? Yesterday so obviously I still coach at Kinja. I'm helping Harry, who is the vice chairman of the club, doing some he also coaches the men's team. So we were doing a webinar yesterday with our players, yeah, it was really interesting because I was saying to them, this it's all, we want to make you not just better players but better people, and I think that focus on creating better people is so modern and so fresh, and you know what, Lipa, I definitely remember seeing that in the sessions that you did, and you definitely created a fantastic environment for the young players of the game to learn. So yeah, full credit to you there, because that you did some great work with that program. And something you may not know about my background, I used to work, before I went to Kinja, I used to work for, it was a kid's birthday place based in Wembley. And they had this, it was a terrible indoor football pitch, like terrible, as in it was probably the size of, at best, a third of the pitch, something like that. It was a third of a seven-a-side pitch. It was so small, and we'd have birthday parties of like 20 kids that were between the ages of 2 and 9, and all this kind of thing.
Gosh.
So I'm sure you shared a lot of my problems in that sense. How do you deal with the complete range of ages that turn up to those kind of sessions?
So right now I'm at Sane FC. They're based in Milton Keynes, and that's well, it's not local. I have to get an hour train to get there. But
Wow, commitment.
if I want to change, so the people that go to the football clubs, they're from minority backgrounds. So they're the type of people that I'm like sort of wanting to get involved more in football. So it's a no-brainer, like an hour of my weekend. Yeah, totally. I'll be there. And yeah, right now I have a 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds, and the 10-year-olds are absolutely amazing. Like, their technical ability is great. However, the 5-year-old is absolutely good at observing. His manners are on point, and the 10-year-old can learn that from the 5-year-old, because as you grow older, you sort of lose your mannerism. And these kids didn't have a coach for a long time. So when I came in, they were kind of doing their own thing, and I was observing them for 2 sessions to see what the previous coach taught them. And every time I put a cone down, I sort of expect them to pick it up at the end of the session. If they kick the ball around, I expect them to put it back. And I was observing for 2 sessions, and they did not do that. And that kind of set me off to think, wow, manners, where are they? However, the younger players were always bringing in the cones and always bringing in the bibs and the balls. So when I started my session, my first ever session as their coach, I wanted that session to be a staple and an example for the rest of the sessions. And instantly, I made sure there was a proper session. There was a beginning, middle, and an end. There was a brief and a debrief, which they were not used to at all. And what I used to do was, at the end of every session, have a football match, because that's what motivates them to come. So I'm not going to take that away from them. And instantly, the 10-year-olds were like, okay, I'm the captain. And then another 10-year-old would be like, oh, I'm the captain for the other team. And I instantly stopped them and said, no, because captains need manners and good leadership skills. And I instantly looked at the 5-year-old and said, you're captain for blue team, and looked at a 6-year-old and said, you're the captain for the red team. And they were shocked. It was a shock to their system, but then it was me putting them back into place and saying, actually, yes, you may be older, but it doesn't mean you're better. And it took them back. I kid you not, they didn't come back to my session again so cocky. They came in with respect. They put all the equipment back. They give me a high five, because I think shaking hands should only be for your rivals and not for, you know, your friends and people you trust. So high fives, unless you've misbehaved and you want to apologize to me, then that's when you give the handshake. So that's the sort of environment that I've created, and I make sure that the kids are okay with it, and I understand every child, because every child is different, and they sort of fit into a puzzle which is called a team. Now every puzzle piece is not the same, and that goes for every single player. So I make sure that whatever sessions I do, I make sure that every child understands it and wants to participate in it. And some days, some players don't want to participate. They just want to sit on the sideline and observe. And that is fine by me, because sometimes at the ages between 5 and 10, it's not always your decision to come and play football. Sometimes it's the parents forcing them to come and play, and the child's desire might be somewhere else. And I had a child that his desire was actually to be the greatest scientist in the world. And I told him, can you make me a football session, but using but describing it through the laws of gravity? And this kid, I kid you not, made a whole session up. He
Wow.
is 7, and he was talking about if this ball hits these two balls, they will bounce off. And he was so, his mind was in a different place, but he understood football, but through his own means. And is that me trying to take creativity away by telling him, no, you can't use science in a football match, or giving him the responsibility and allowing him to explore who he is? Because during those ages, you are still exploring who you are and where you want to be, and he's still building upon those skills. So if I'm restricting a child, in long term, those skills could be diminished. You know, he could lose them, and I don't want him to be demotivated by sports at all.
That's amazing. That is fantastic. I mean, anyone listening in, that's a superb insight for working with that age group in particular. That is brilliant. And you know what, I really like how you dealt with that player, how you empowered them to take ownership of their own learning and discover their own desire to want to be interested in the sport or be interested in science. So yeah, really interesting stuff there. I just want to take you all the way back to Kinja, when you first sort of took on the development center there, when you first took on a session. I just wanted to explore how you felt at that time. Did you feel particularly nervous at all?
I was so scared. Every time you used to cover some of my sessions, right? And I used to be like, okay, I could hide behind Danny. That's amazing. Like I could hide behind him. And then I think Harry was like, oh, Danny's not coming. You're the head of the development center. And my heart just dropped. And I was like, do I cry? What do I do? And I was like, okay, I'll give this a go. If I don't like it, I could always walk away. Little did I know that I would actually form relationships with these little kids who were my players, and I would find it really tough to leave them. So I was so scared when I first started. I didn't know where to start, how to manage my time. I was more scared about the parents. I don't know why, but every coach I spoke to, they were like, oh, parents, they're going to be your biggest problem. But I was so lucky. Those parents were basically my friends as well. If their child was misbehaving, they would let me deal with it. They would not butt in unless they wanted to take their child out of their session because they had to go home early. Other than that, they allowed me to do whatever I wanted in terms of football and their children as players. And having that support system, not only from the parents, but from the players, and then also the club and other coaches around me, really allowed me to grow as not only a coach, but a leader. And since then, I've just been growing and growing. And honestly, before I couldn't do a session in front of 5 kids. But now if you push me to do a session with a men's team, I will do it. Like, it's pushed me to believe that yes, everything that I'm scared of is all psychological, and I do have the potential to do better.
100%, 100%. And just on that, really, we spoke to in the episode prior to this one, which will eventually go out. We spoke with another UCFB student. I think he was in the year above you, or maybe 2 years above you. Same year as me. He was Joseph Pike. I don't know if you know or have heard of Joe. But he also did the sports business, sports coaching course, and he said to me, or I asked him actually about the obviously the way the course works and you having to deliver some sessions. I wondered if you felt nervous doing any of those sessions at all.
Yes. So the first ever session that I had to do in front of all my colleagues, yes, I was so scared. And that goes back to me being a player and always being scared as a player to be creative and to think outside the box and to be allowed to do things that I want to do. So when I was told to put on a session in front of all these men, because my course was 65 people out of the group were men, excuse me, and then I think about 7 of us were female. So yeah, it was very daunting, and I was just standing there like, oh my gosh, the world hates me. What am I doing here? Like, this is terrible. What possessed me to choose this university? So I hated myself for like 2 days straight.
Yeah.
But then I was like, do you know what? I'm going to make a mistake now. And then my lecturers and mentors could teach me how to better myself. And I kid you not, the session was terrible. It was horrendous. And honestly, I didn't expect it to be amazing, but I thought it would be a little bit better than that. And the thing is, no one laughed at me. Everyone gave me really good constructive feedback, and that encouraged me to think, do you know what, all of this men hating women in the sports world is only in the media, because in real life right now where I am, everyone around me is very supportive. And I thought, oh, being a BAME individual in sport, no one's going to understand me. What am I doing here? To now being, I'm actually very comfortable in the position I am. I've made mistakes and I will keep on making mistakes, and that is okay. And for new coaches or anyone listening today and thinking, oh, do you know what, I want to be a coach, making mistakes is so normal. Every manager, coach, player makes mistakes, but that makes them at the end of the day. And your first session may not be great, just like my one, but I promise you, by your 10th session, it will be much better than your first.
Yep. Yeah. Wise words there. I mean, I think everyone has had multiple versions of those kind of sessions. And yeah, I mean, looking back, I'm pretty sure my first session was, wow, unspeakable compared to some of the ones I put on today. But even now, I still put on ropey sessions, and I think, and I'm sure you probably buy into this quality as well, because I know it's something that I believe you have as a quality, but I think it's one that many good coaches need, is that humbleness to sort of, and the humility to sort of say, well, you know what, it was a bad session, but next time I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and make sure that it's a better session for my players. I don't know if humility is a quality that you rate really, really highly within yourself.
Well, I guess it is part of me, and especially part of my religion. So I'm Muslim, and it would be not Muslim of me if I didn't humble myself and have good manners. And honestly, not to be big-headed, and I don't know. I wasn't brought up like that. I always saw every opportunity that I've done as an improvement. So even if I absolutely smashed a conference call, I know that there are still bits in there that I need to improve on. Even when I'm going to listen back to this podcast, I'm going to absolutely cringe at every 10 seconds of me speaking. But that's okay, because I know next time I will phrase myself better and compose myself with every question.
It's
So
only
it
natural.
goes with it goes with everything I do, I guess.
Yeah, it's only natural. I mean, even when I listen back to myself, I'm like, oh my God, I sound like that. That's crazy. So yeah, I think everyone does it. You're so yeah, that those first couple of sessions that you had to put on for obviously Kinja and obviously UCFB must have been very, very nerve-wracking. How did you deal with those nerves? Was it, as you say, that kind of acceptance of, yeah, I'm probably going to make mistakes, or was there any other techniques that you used to sort of combat nerves when it comes to coaching?
So my first, well, not my first session, my second session, when I'm like, okay, this needs to be better than my first one, I was more scared, because I felt like I had to prove myself that I've improved in X amount of months, and I was shaking and I was scared and I was overthinking and breathing very fast, and I was like, why am I doing this? All this doesn't it's nothing compared to what half of the world is going through right now, and I'm here like absolutely bricking it over a coaching session. Do you know how funny that sounds? And then I told myself, do you know what? Get this over and done with. Get your feedback, and I promise you, sooner you'll be strong enough to make mistakes, but be confident at making them. So I've now gone from making mistakes and accepting them to making mistakes whilst being confident with them. And yeah, my second session was way, way, way better than my first one. But as I said, there were mistakes made, and I was very scared at the time that, how do I compose myself for the next one? And by the end of it, when you keep on doing sessions in front of the same people, you lose the fear factor. And then after a couple of months, I joined Kinja, and then the fear factor came creeping back, and I was like, oh my gosh, now I have kids. Kids, if you don't know, very honest and brutal. If they don't like your session,
it's so true. It's so true.
If they don't like your session, they'll be like, coach, that was boring. And you're just there like, oh, I hate myself. But
poor Timmy, who's like 5 years old, telling you that was boring.
But little did he know I was crying 10 minutes before coming to the session because I didn't want to come. But honestly, it's okay to have all of those feelings. It's okay to be nervous and to be scared, but it's also very important to know who you are and how to control it. And the way I used to control it is by looking at others and then seeing what they're doing and sort of observe how they're disciplining their people and where their equipment is, how they're approaching each session, and then transfer it over to mine. And then sooner or later, you'll get confident with yourself, which means you'll be more confident with your coaching philosophy, which means you'll be more confident in life and as a leader. But yeah, it's okay not to be okay, especially if you're there going in for an assessment to do with coaching. You will be scared, and that is so fine. Like, it's cool. If you're scared, it's cool. It's okay. You'll get over it, and when it's over, you'll be so happy, and you'll look back at it thinking, why was I scared again?
but it's standard though. Like, it's I mean, even when I did my level 2 course, I mean, we're obviously aware, you get caught up and you get nervous over silly little things, but like, even though you're aware of it, it won't stop it. It will still happen. It's just how you interpret it, I guess, is the big one for me. I think you just got to interpret it as a challenge, as an exciting opportunity. Um, that's my takeaway point, I think, on that. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I do definitely.
Cool. So just wanted to again revisit a point that I think you mentioned a little bit earlier. You mentioned about how your playing affected your coaching. I was wondering if you could sort of delve a little bit deeper into that. What happened in terms of your playing when you was playing in teams, the coaches that you had? What effect did that have on you now as a coach yourself?
So I'm just going to take a back a little bit. So when I was playing football for my school team, I was so confident, creative, and I was a rebel on the pitch, meaning I will try any trick in the books to get
What
past that
player
defender.
what player was you most like if you had to pick a player
Oh,
that
I don't
summed you up?
know. I sort of,
Or a
I was a
hybrid of
very,
players?
I don't know. I think there will be a lot of players mushed together. I was really fast, but I was the smallest on the pitch. I was really technical, but I was very strong, like physically very strong. If you were 6 foot and you were right next to me, just know I will still get the ball to my head, and just know that you'll probably end up on the floor because I've tried to get the ball. So I was very confident within my own skin. And I taught myself football. So no one taught me football at all. I taught myself everything in the books before I went to a football team. I learned the offside rule and all of that good stuff, you know. And then I went to this football team, and I got in. I was on. I was in the under 18s team, and I was always starting. So that's a good sign, right? And then
It sure is.
slowly, with every training session, I felt like I was losing a bit of me, who I was. And then I got a ring from the head coach of the women's team, and they're like, "Hey, Lipa, we want you to be on the women's team." And at the time, that was it was a dream. In paid to play football, not gonna lie to you, it's probably half of this nation's dream, right? So
Oh,
I
definitely.
was thinking, yes, like I've made it. Like, come on, like I'm gonna play for like Liverpool one day. Like I was really excited, really happy, and then I went for a really big change in my life. So as a Muslim woman, you wear headscarf when you're ready, and you observe modesty. And prior to that, I didn't wear a headscarf. Um, Nothing of that sort. And then after one summer, I come back to a new from a new to a new season, and everyone was sort of shocked, which is normal. Like if it's gone through a massive change, it's like dyeing your hair blue or something, which is completely fine as well. But I was, you know, an outcast. That's what I felt like. And all of a sudden my friends were a bit different with me, which I thought was normal.
Oh,
And the first game I ever played for the women's team, I got verbally abused and all of that bad stuff that shouldn't happen to a 16-year-old, 15-year-old going on to 16. She should be only worried about her GCSEs, right?
I'm really sorry to hear that. That's awful. That. Sorry, Lipper. Carry on.
And I was like, okay, these guys are strangers. The parents are strangers. It won't happen again. This is who I am. And all of a sudden, I was like questioning, do I want to wear my headscarf anymore? And I was like, of course you do. This is a part of you. And I went to training one day, and we were doing a drill on headers. So controlling a cross coming in or a corner coming in, and all you could do to score is use your head. Wearing a headscarf, I done a header, and my headscarf slipped back just a little bit. And the coach for the goalkeeper, he was like, he turned to me, he's like, that's why you shouldn't wear that stupid thing on your head. So it went from complete strangers shouting abuse to me to someone that I was really close to and trusted. And honestly, at that time, I felt so little. I couldn't talk to anyone of the players because they wouldn't understand. And so I went home and I played football in the back garden. And every time, so my mum used to drop me off at the training ground, and I used to hate going to training. I was like, Mum, can you just wait? Let them start the session and then I'd go, because I didn't want to speak to anyone. And then one day, I hated going so much that I hated football. And I thought that would never, ever happen to me, because a football ground is my happy place. And all of a sudden, it's become a scary place. So I sat down and I thought about all the good things that's happened to me and all the bad things. And all the bad things that were associated with me at the time, apart from GCSE stress.
Which is natural.
Unless you're supposed to be doing GCSEs in 2020, you've got no stress.
Lucky people.
I was literally, they're so lucky, right?
Yeah.
But I was putting everything on the table and thinking, I'm on a contract. I'm going to go and ask during this transfer window if I could be transferred to a different football club. And I took this massive leap. I was like, I went to the owner and said, I want to change. I want to go to a different football club. And they're like, well, what happened? You know, what's going on? Obviously, I wasn't going to tell them because I wasn't confident and I was pretty scared. And at that time, my mum didn't even know what I was going through. Yeah. So I was just fighting this battle alone. And I was like, do you know what? I want a dual contract. I want to go to a different team. And they're like, okay, that can happen. You can't have a full-on transfer, but you can have a dual contract. So I went to another a team in the area, and they were on the level of playing and league level. They weren't semi-professional. But the first session I went to, I felt like I was home, that I was wanted. Everyone was laughing, everyone was happy. And I was a new girl, but it's like I was there since the club began. And then I slowly started to find myself. I slowly started to become the old me, but better. And I never returned to the other team. And I don't think I ever will. And unless I'm invited to go and speak to them about my
experiences.
Experiences. But I believe that every person changes, and yeah, education is key for every coach. And I think the new coach that we're seeing today is very educated within the BAME community. They are very educated in the needs of players. And after that, I saw my coach for my second team. He was a third year university student. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so down to earth and I'm loving football. And we were winning every single game. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And he was like to me, we've never played this good before. And that's because there were so many people from the other team coming into this second team that I'm in now.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that, yes, money's there, the level's there, but doesn't mean happiness is there. And I saw what he was doing, and I think right now I'm trying to become him as a coach, trying to be that fun coach, bring that aspect of home back into people's lives, because I know some people don't have a home. If you're trying to get what I'm saying, when they go home, they don't really have a home. So if a football ground could be their home, that is quite nice. But yeah, when I started to speak about my experiences, I realized that there were different people around the UK that were going through similar stuff. So at the time, I thought I was alone, but now I definitely 100% know I wasn't alone. But one thing I do want is to make sure I was the last case of whatever happened. And I wish I knew about the likes of Kick It Out. At the time, I do a lot of work with them, and I didn't know they existed. So maybe educating children as well to know that, yes, you might be a great player, but actually, because unfortunately you are black, you are Muslim, you are a Jew, you have a disability, you might be a target. You may face that, but do not hide it. If it happens to you, report it, come and talk to us. And I think maybe that's what I needed. So that's why I make sure that my players are never alone, because I guess once upon a time I was, which is quite sad, but thinking about it, it's made me the person I am today. I'm very confident, and I kid you not, if that happened to me today, you will get a couple of ABCs back at you.
Brilliant. Listen, Lipa, I'm really, really sorry to hear what happened. That's awful. And you know, if anyone is listening and going through a similar situation, or knows someone who's going through a similar situation, what's the avenue now? What can they do?
They can report it. So People Out have this whole page explaining if you see something in a professional game, grassroots game, anything like that, you can report it. You can report it to stewards if they're out and about, or if you are like me as a player facing discrimination, you can still use the same avenues. However, make sure you don't compromise your happiness. Don't continue to play the game if you're not happy, because you could hurt yourself, do more damage by continuing than stopping. And we see it in the modern game today, where unfortunately racism is still out there. You see that there's a new protocol now. It's like I haven't watched football in ages.
It feels so long ago, doesn't it? It feels like ages ago. I think that was it. England, didn't England suffer it? I mean, was that this year or was that last year? You know what? Same thing. It
but
feels
something
like
happened
ages.
like a couple of years ago, I think. No, I'm joking. A couple of months ago, where professional teams, they will go through strike one, strike two, and the third strike, everyone walks off. And I'm so happy that that's in place. However, there still needs to be so much more done. And I'm not talking about by big organizations. I'm talking about as us, as individuals. If we see it, yes, I'm not black, but I'm human. So why am I going to let someone else call someone else something else that I don't like right in my presence? I don't think that should happen. And it's a great time to be in right now, because we have this quarantine, as I say, as a big pause. So when we do go back to football, do I want it to be how we left it? Yes, because I want Liverpool to win the league. No.
I was waiting for that. I knew you was a Liverpool fan.
No, because
avoid. Keep Norwich up. We won't complain.
And no, because I'm trying to be serious here.
Carry on.
And no, because all the manners. Where have the manners gone? We all talk about manners for players, but where have the manners gone for fans? Fans do not observe manners, and that is disgusting. And I want to be able to take my little sister to a men's game, which I haven't, because I'm frankly quite scared for her. I'm scared for what she will see and what she will hear. And that shouldn't be the case. It should be a case of, she wants to go to a football match, I will take her. And she may or may not like it, but at least she's had that experience of being in a good and friendly environment, which is accepting to all. And I think this time is really a time for reflection and reflecting upon our actions as individuals and as clubs and fans of clubs. So yeah, hopefully this will stop the belittling of the women's game. As people say, the women's game has been hasn't been around for a very long time. However, it's been around mid 1800s, so actually
Ages.
pretty much
It's been
similar to
ages. Yeah.
pretty much similar to the men's game. And when men went out to war, World War One, World War Two, who provided the entertainment for football? Yep, you guessed it, the women. We started playing football. Yeah, so it's not new. It's very old, and we just need to get over it, build that bridge that we've been taking decades to build, and just get over it. Like, seriously, everyone should be able to play football.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And it's interesting because so as part of one of my modules for uni, we had to choose an area to look at, and I looked at women's football, and particularly the issues in terms of media and all that kind of thing. And looking back, I think it was the Ditka ladies. I think that's them. I mean,
Yeah.
they attracted so many spectators to games and so much attention, that is quite shocking that it's gone under the radar, really, to a general sports fan, that they attract this many people when, at the same time or a couple years earlier or a couple years later, the men's game couldn't attract near that, really, which is so strange.
It's because they banned the game, didn't they?
Yeah,
After a certain
that's
amount,
the
they're
issue.
like, do you know what? The women are taking over. We need to do something as men. So that was their little backlash. They're like, the
Their little
suffragettes
plan.
have hit us. They're like, the suffragettes have hit us. We can't let them have it all. It's just stop them from playing football. And like, how many decades on, and we're still at the same point of maybe they can have a shot, but they will never be good at football than us. However, the women's game is completely different to the men's game. It's like comparing different types of pasta together. Like, they have a different purpose, man. Don't compare them.
No, that's a fair comment, and let's hope that this decade, anyway, is the decade where we can actually see a bit more equality in terms of payments and in terms of representation as well. It'd be nice to see that, but anyway, we've gone on a massive tangent there, which is awesome, and this is why I like doing this podcast, because we can go down tangents. I want to go back to your final days at Kinja. Just talk us through what you achieved or what you felt you achieved as maybe as a coach, or the experiences you had there, before moving on to your next role.
Oh, wow. So the last couple of months of me being at Kinja, when I actually took a deep breath in and realized how much I achieved in such a short amount of time, really made me realize that, yes, you could be an amazing coach, but having an amazing foundation and support with you really does help you, not as a coach, but as a person. And it really did build upon my leadership. I'm a better leader now. I'm very confident within my own skin, which, if you told me when I was 16 that I'd be in this position I am today, I would have probably just looked at you. I just walked off. I wouldn't even give you that attention. But now I'm thinking back to Kinja and how I was in the last couple of days. I was so confident, and so confident in my philosophy and who I was as a person. However, I knew that what I had at Kinja could not be replicated in a different club, even though I would love for it to be. I know that everything that I learned at Kinja will sort of somewhat have to only stay at Kinja, and every club has a different puzzle, as I said. So different pieces, and I'll be introduced to new pieces of this massive puzzle of a team. And I will just have to, take every day as it goes and sort of build upon my areas of weakness, that I shouldn't call weakness, I should call areas of improvement.
That's the one.
So yeah, I was very confident, and I was, first time in a long time, I was very proud of what I achieved. and very humbled by the opportunities that were given to me.
So, moving on to your next role then. Talk us through that transition. How did you get your next role?
So my next role, they kind of were eyeing me out since I was coaching for Kinja, which I didn't know about. And they're like, okay, we need this girl to come and play, come and coach our team. And I was like, do you know what? I'll give it a go. So I went there, and my first session, there were two kids. There was one boy, two boys there. And there was an 8-year-old, and that 5-year-old that I told you about, he was there. So he's been there since my first day. And I was quite upset to see that what the city had, rural areas don't really have. And yes, Milton Keynes is not rural, but it's more rural than London. So yeah, and it was a football club linked to a local mosque. So yeah, I was very new to the whole area. I have no idea what's going on, and I am the only lady on that pitch, and I'm the only coach who is female in this club. And of all the the chairman, the backroom staff, I am the only female. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what hole have I just dug? I was so scared. Like, when I told you I was scared in UCFB and I was scared at Kinja, no. They were probably like little nightmares. This challenge, I was so scared. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so different, because they're not FA affiliated. They're a private football club. So they're not with the FA groups. So I'm just sitting there thinking, oh no, what am I doing? And then came back home that day and gave Harry a massive paragraph saying, I miss King George. Be back. And he's like, we miss you too. And I was like, is that it? Come on, take me back then.
You know he would have done in a heartbeat anyway. That goes without saying.
And I was like in my room thinking, oh gosh, I'm back at square one. And that was so scary to me, being back at square one and starting all over again. And I thought to myself, okay, they're the type of people that I want to work with, because Asian individuals their children and young people are 35% less active according to Sport England. So I wanted to decrease that percentage. So I went in there the third session. Kids still hated me, but that was okay. They will get used to me soon. And I was having this man that was a coach at the club, was being the key word, at the club, telling me what to do as if I didn't know what to do. So I think he thought, me being a woman, I didn't know how football worked at all. And he didn't know who I was and what type of experiences I have. So I just acted dumb and played along. Acted dumb to the point that I was like, so where do I put the cones? Which type of cones? Doesn't matter what size. Are they all the same size? Like, if you're gonna play me as a clown, I will play you as a clown. Like, I'm very comfortable in where I am right now, and I know when someone's being very rude to me, and I won't take that. Like, 16-year-old me probably would be scared, but right now I wouldn't take that. And the chairman was there. So bearing in mind, the chairman of the club, the owner of the club, and the financial director of the club were on the other side of the gate. I took a stance and said to him, excuse me there, I have experience. How about I take this session and you watch, giving you a break. So I wasn't trying to make an argument or something quite tense.
Yeah.
But just to display my skill set, and what I can do, not as a Muslim woman, not as a woman, but as a person that absolutely loves football. And that's what I done. The kids loved it. They're like, Coach, are you going to coach again? And honestly, I didn't want them to say that, not that soon, because as I mentioned, those three people, the financial director, the owner, the chairman, were just there, and I was thinking, oh no, I've cost this man his job, haven't I?
That's
But
brilliant.
bearing in mind, this man's day job is working in the financial district, and he didn't really love football. So there you go. Like, if you want to work somewhere, make sure you're passionate about it. And he wasn't passionate, and you could tell. And yeah, since then I have grown as a person, and I'm very comfortable. As I said, I'm very comfortable. If I wasn't that comfortable, I wouldn't take on about 10 men on at once. I wouldn't say, do you know what, do you need to change this? Do you need to have an open door? Yes, this club is only for those Muslims that attend this mosque, but I want it to be open to everyone in this area. And they agreed. Now, the biggest challenge for me was to have some of these people who didn't really understand that women can play football, to understand, like, they really don't understand that women can actually kick a football and they can go out for runs and ride a bike. I think it was so foreign to them. But yeah, I was like, I need to have girls come into this club. And if you want me here, you will allow me to do that. And you will. I didn't give them the option. So you will allow me to open the doors up to girls. And I was literally breaking their norms and their values. They hated every second of it. Not all of them. I'm just talking about the old,
the old guard,
people, you know. And they were like, okay, we'll only allow you to recruit girls that are under the age of 9. And I was like, great, cool, thanks. And I have no idea how I'm going to reach these girls because I'm not part of this community of theirs. So I'm thinking, oh Lord, what have I done? And yeah, so I spoke to people and they brought their kids along. And I had one girl come to my session. I was like, do you know what? One is better than none. And I was so happy to see this girl. And she was like, Coach, you look like me. Coach, we're going to play football. Coach, can you teach me how to do that? Coach, that was so cool. And I didn't realize the impact I was having on this one girl that first started until her friends started to join and their friends started to join. And then during International Women's Week, I had a photographer come in, and I was doing a piece for her website, and the kids were like, oh my gosh, you're on camera. And they're like, yeah, us women that play sports can be on camera, you know. And they were just baffled to think that there's more to sports than just playing. And yeah, I went from 2 boys, to having 15 boys, to having now enough kids mixed in with girls. I now have a regular of 9 girls come in, which is nice.
That's amazing. Well
hopefully done. This coronavirus hasn't killed it off. I'm just hoping that I don't need to start again. But if I do need to start again, it's okay. We will continue to fight the forces in a friendly manner and in a peaceful manner.
That's good. Again, you summed it up nicely there. I'm sure, you know what? I'm sure at the end of this, when everything starts going back to normal, I'm sure you'll see those 9 again. You know what? It wouldn't surprise me if they bring a couple of mates along as well. That's amazing. How you've gone in there, you've changed essentially a club You've had to fight so many battles behind the scenes, and now you're obviously growing as a coach, but growing as a person and growing their program there. That's fantastic to see. It certainly as someone who's seen a small nugget in terms of your coaching journey firsthand. That's amazing. I'm so pleased for you, Lipa. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Not a problem. And am I right in thinking that brings us up to date in terms of your journey so far? Then is that where you are right now, and we've got all the boxes ticked as such.
Yes, you have. You have indeed.
Perfect. So I've got a few questions down. I hope you don't mind.
Go
Uh,
on. Let's hear them.
I so one I want to kick off with before we get into sort of the more coaching ones is your work with Kick It Out and various other organisations. Just for those listening in who maybe are unaware of the work you do you mind just sharing a bit of that quickly?
Yeah, so I'm essentially a sports activist. I work with organizations and part of youth boards and a sort of a voice from a BAME youth perspective. So I'm part of the Youth Sports Trust Youth Board, and I am also newly appointed ambassador for them. I'm also sort
Congrats.
of, thank you. I'm also sort of a Kick It Out like ambassador now. Like I've just kind of slipped into that role, and that's because my podcast, I'm co-founder of a podcast called I Think She's Offside, where we talk about all things women's sports. I need to plug that in.
No, that's
Um,
fine. We're going to plug that again at the end, so no problem. If you want to chuck in a Twitter handle now, you can chuck in a Twitter handle. That's fine.
actually is offside, might as well, right? So
Of course.
we so myself and my co-host, we bumped into each other at a Kick It Out event, and we had the similarities of our playing history was quite similar. Like she had to fight to play football because she was wearing a headscarf, and I also had to fight because I was wearing a headscarf. So we're like, do you know what? We've had enough. We've had enough of people telling us what to do. Let's make a platform. And that platform was created because of Kick It Out. And since then, we've kind of worked with Kick It Out on various things. I've been on their panels and I've spoken at their events. And what they're doing is so unbelievably good. And I wish I knew about them when I was 16, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's just crazy. And right now, I'm doing work with Patchwork. So
Okay.
Patchwork allows for individuals to get a perspective into policy and politics. So we go into the Houses of Parliament and talk to MPs, sports ministers, and kind of like pick their brain to see what they're doing. And that's ultimately because I know I won't be a coach forever, and that means a football coach, not a people's coach. And that's because I do want to change the world. And I always say I'm going to change the world with a hijab on my head and a ball at my feet, and that will happen. But I know that will happen with time. And I need to right now just build upon my knowledge, and Patchwork is allowing me to do that right now. And
Yeah,
hopefully in a couple of years' time, you'll probably see me making the decisions about sports and policy, or working with people that make the decisions for sports and policy.
yeah, I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I really do. I think that's a superb ambition to have there. Okay, fantastic. And for those who haven't heard of Kick It Out, it's again just to emphasize what Lipa said. Really great organisation. They put on some fantastic events, and certainly the Raise Your Game conferences. I don't know if they're doing multiple conferences because of the coronavirus. I think I saw somewhere they're doing it by sections. I could be wrong.
Yes, they are. They're going to have different video calls for different subjects. So media is going to have one, careers is going to have one. But I'm not sure when this is going to go out because you have to register quite quickly and the spaces are going. So if you don't get in this time, there will be more opportunities in the future. So they do have a female-only conference event. So you do feel very confident in expressing yourself and talking to people, as a sporting world, as mentioned earlier in the podcast, can be daunting when you're literally a minority and or the only female in the room. So having that Raise Your Game women's conference does allow for other women within the industry to get together and build the rapport, and that is good. That is really important. Networking in the sports industry is a no-brainer. You have to do it.
Yep, 100%. And Troy Townsend does some fantastic stuff there, so a big shout out to him as well. Okay, on to a couple more questions, if that's all right. What, in your eyes, makes a good coach?
Ooh. Oh.
It's a tough
Oh.
question. It is a tough question.
One that could take you away from reality, but still install it within you. So what I mean by that is when you step on the football pitch, to take away all your worldly worries, but at the same time not forgetting your manners and your who you are and where you've come from. As I mentioned, I was told to take my headscarf off, but I didn't. So realizing your identity and keeping it firm, while still being in this fantasy world of playing football and absolutely loving the game. And as a coach, I don't know, being the best version of you, and being a good leader.
Good. I like that. Yeah, very nice. You mentioned right at the beginning that you sort of taught yourself football by playing in the garden or going to have a kick around. How important is that to some of the young players today? Certainly in terms of lockdown, how important is it for them to just go out and kick a ball?
So very important. It is so important, especially in this day and age. I'm not even talking about lockdown right now. I'm talking about even when we're not in lockdown. We expect kids to have all these high intensity equipment. They should be running on the treadmill. They need that samba goal in their back garden in order to shoot a goal. No, you don't. I learned how to play football with the wall of my house and kicking it back and forth, pretending that that's a player. Like, I was the eldest and at the time the only child, so kicking the ball to the wall and using different techniques, turning around, and that's pretty simple. And you're doing it by yourself and repeating actions, which in this day and age people don't like to do. They don't like repeating themselves. They just want results instantly. And when I was younger, all I had at the time was a wall, and a football. And when we needed goals, and I think you might have done that as this as well when you were younger in school, we didn't have goals put in place during lunchtimes. We had to use our backpacks, our school jumpers to make the goals. It's pretty simple. You don't need a lot of things to play football. And if you don't have a garden, like how I do, you could, if you can afford it, get a foam football. And if you can't afford a foam football, carrier bags, wrap it around, sellotape it up, get the kids creative. And that is a football in most countries, because if you go to third world countries, they can't afford footballs. So what they do, they get banana leaves and wrap it around and make a football. Or in some parts of South Asia, they get plastic carrier bags and they wrap it around and sort of interlink them together to make a football, and that will work fine. And I think we're so privileged in this country that we forget the basics. And during quarantine, we are literally put on our hands and knees to think of ideas to keep kids active. And I'm not only talking about kids, I'm also talking about adults that want to also play football or give it a go. Now is a chance for you to kick a football if you've never done it before, because no one's watching you. No one's going to laugh if you miss that shot. No one's going to laugh if you don't kick the ball right, because you will learn. And there's enough videos online, and I'm sure your friends and family could help you if someone in your family plays football.
Yep, good stuff. And it does chuck me back to the good old days when the jumpers for goalposts. Love that. Yeah, good old days. Though those were. What uh, what would you say has been sort of your greatest strength as a coach? If you had to choose one area in terms of your coaching that you think you're really strong at, one quality that you have, what would it be and why?
Oh. Um, Understanding. Um, so being able to understand, whether it means a player, a parent, their background, because understanding something, um, and building your knowledge upon that will definitely like help you in different aspects. So what I mean by this is understanding a player. If they're creative, why not challenge them on the pitch by the technical ability? If they can't do that, why don't you challenge them by, you know, customizing their boots or their water bottle? Like, what's stopping you from understanding them and seeing them for a person that's, you know, not every player that comes on your pitch is the same player outside of it. So who are they? That's it. Just understanding who they are.
Good, good. And who would you say is your coaching inspiration? Or it may not be one person in particular, but what's your sources of inspiration when it comes to coaching?
Um, I don't have people that I aspire to. Like, I know people say they should, but I like different traits of people. So when I was younger, as I said, I didn't, as a South Asian Muslim woman, there was no representation of us in sports at the time. So I didn't have a role model that looked like me, that spoke like me. So I went to look for something else. It may be from one person or from two people. And Paula Radcliffe was the female side of me with the grit and determination she always posed when she was running those marathons. And Sir Alex Ferguson, with his discipline and manners. And I really put them together as a child. And I think I've sort of carried it on today. And I don't know why I was analysing people that young, but we go with it.
Hey, it's a great trait to have. Great trait to have. Anyone who's listening in who is a female coach or is looking to get into coaching and is a female, um, have you got any advice for them about those first steps or taking those first steps into coaching?
So if you're in the city, you have so much support. There's support out there everywhere you turn. However, when you're in a small town like mine, there's literally no one. Um, that's what you think. There's like literally no one around you. However, if you don't have those connections when you're in year 9, year 10, but you want to be a coach in the future, talk to your PE teachers and they will help you in the way they can. And I know right now they can't. Um, However, if you speak to them, I know for a fact that they know someone from the FA, or your local FA that can help you attain those coaching qualifications, get you a spot with a local club where you can coach every weekend. And don't think it's too far away. Like, don't think coaching is such a hard thing to do and it's like miles away. Because when you live in a village or a small town, it feels like everyone is distant from you. However, there's so many people that are exactly like you, and you could be the next person to help your local community. You could be the brick that your community needs. And take every day as it goes as a coach. And it's okay to make mistakes, because without trial and error, we wouldn't have Sir Alex Ferguson, right? And he
Of
was a
course.
good coach.
Yeah, just good. He was all right, I guess.
No, it's because I'm a Liverpool fan, so I can't really
Yeah, I
like
know
say
you
he's
can't
amazing.
go overboard with that. Yeah.
I know I'm already getting hate for saying his name, but
Look, you've got to appreciate a good man's work, and a good
exactly.
coach you've got to appreciate. So yeah, fair enough. What what are you currently doing during lockdown to sort of help your coaching? Are you doing anything in terms of like session planning, or are you doing any online courses?
Right now I'm just talking to other coaches and seeing if I could like look at their philosophy and how is their philosophy different to mine, and sharing ideas with each other. And I think that's so important. And I know I don't want coaching to be my bread and butter, but I know coaching's my happiness. So making sure my happiness is um, filled with good information, with new sessions for after quarantine, because I know for a fact that the children that I left before quarantine, they will come back completely different after quarantine. And I shouldn't expect the same. I shouldn't expect them to be the same. So basically trying to change my mindset on what sessions to do, how I can help them, because psychologically they are probably very hurt right now. As I know some of my players have lost people in their lives. So how can I help them? And yeah, that's it. How can I help them, and how can others help me to get to where I want to be? So even if there's someone listening in today thinking, oh, I want to coach 9-year-olds, but I don't know what sessions to put on for them, DM me on Twitter and I could hand you over some sessions that I've done and you can make it your own.
Amazing, amazing. Do you want to just plug your Twitter now? You're also going to get a chance to plug it at the end as well. But if they,
It's lit.
if anyone
It,
stops listening beyond this point, at least know your handle.
it's Lipa, Lipa_Nessa. So Nessa is spelled Nessa. It's basically my first name and my second name with an underscore because I couldn't have my normal name.
It's
Twitter.
annoying, isn't it? It is annoying when you get someone on Twitter who's got the same name as you. That's so annoying.
The thing is,
Uh,
no one's got my name, so I don't even know why I can't have it.
you just fancied that underscore,
Oh.
you know. But fair enough. In terms of the quarantine, the lockdown, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
Oh, staying at home and keeping sane without football. Because normally, if I'm in a situation where I don't know what to do with my life, I normally like to just watch football or keep forward. I mean, look forward to watching football on the weekend or midweek, but that's not there anymore. So, what do I do? So, as I said, for my mental health, I try and put my needs first. I homeschool my little sister, so that keeps me very busy. I paint, I do a lot of literature, and I do play in the garden. So my sister has PE lessons. I'm not only her maths, English, science,
Wow,
ICT,
what
all
a
of
new
those
job you've got.
teachers. I know. I'm also a PE teacher. And I kid you not, when I was little, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I can guarantee that is not the case right now.
I was going to say you could definitely add that to the CV. That's awesome. Cool. On to the final three questions. Thank you very much, Lipa. I appreciate you giving up a lot of your time here. Um, what?
It's not like I'm busy doing anything else. Come
Well,
on now.
still. I mean, you could be teaching. I know it's a Saturday, but you could still be teaching. Um, what would you say has probably been the greatest highlight of your coaching journey so far? What do
Oh
you
my
look back
gosh.
on and be so proud at?
Um, oh my gosh. Wow. Uh, I'm gonna have to say, I'm literally walking to my cabinet where all my trophies are to see like which one I want to put first. And it's gonna be the Joel, it's gonna be the Joel Richards Inspire Award, and I got it at the FA Leadership Academy, in 2019. Joel was a coach. Unfortunately, his life was cut short during the terrorist attacks in Tunisia, and yeah, those people used my religion to portray their evil. And then last year, I was surprised by this award. and it's such an honor for me to get this award. I just can't believe they thought of me. So his parents and his sister chose me, and to think that people who portrayed Muslims in a bad light took their son's life. However, there are good out there, and they were very open to that, and they decided to give me the award. And that's because I used to do stuff for Middlesex FA, the SEN, and I've done stuff for Kinja, and they were like, do you know what, this kid's going places. So they gave me an award, and I was like, wow. And I was not expecting that award at all. I didn't even know who Joel was, and after I got the award, I truly understood its value. So yeah.
Amazing, so amazing. That is a fantastic award to have, and 100% deserved as well. As you've mentioned all the stuff you've done in the sort of lead up to that award anyway, but just the stuff you're doing now post that award, again, 100% deserved.
Thank you.
That's okay. What is success for you as a coach?
I knew this was gonna come up. I didn't think of anything for this one. Oh, success. Oh.
It's, you know what, it is hard. Again, it's one of those that I think a lot of coaches, it's very subjective. Everyone has their own opinion on what is success, and I think that's why I like asking it, to find out why everyone has different beliefs.
Success means it's like me as a business person. Success means something completely different to me being a coach. So yeah, if you're going to come to me with a business deal, do not think that this is going to be my perspective of success. But success for me is knowing that I've treated everyone in an equal manner, and I've given 100% on my sessions, and for every child that I teach to look back on these days as their good days, not to be scared or frightened to speak up in the future when they are parents in the future, and something goes wrong, they're not afraid to speak up for what is right. Success means to stand up for what's right, to be happy, and to look after yourself, both through physical and psychological wellness. That's it, I think.
Bang on the money. Love that. Final question then, Lipa. I can't believe it. We've got to this stage. I mean, it's incredible that we got 1 hour and a half in. And
I didn't even know the time.
I mean, it's gone so quick. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But longer term ambition, what's the aim? 5-10 years time, will we see Lipa coaching in the Premier League one day, or have you got other avenues that you want to explore?
I can say this now. You would never see me coaching at Premier League or elite level ever, and that's because I love the grassroots level. It's my happy place, as I said. And if I go to pro level, all of a sudden there will be stress and psychological strain onto that. And honestly, I would hate football again, and I don't want to be in that position. So I would always coach at grassroots level. I know there's probably people saying, yes, she's not going to be an elite coach. Time for me to get in there. Yes, you get in there. I want to see a woman coach one day, or a BAME coach the England men's first team. You know, that'd be cool. And from a business perspective, I'm gonna probably have to keep that secret. I don't like telling people my ambitions, but just know I want to aim for the top in the sports industry.
I like it. Very secretive. Very good. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's show. Lipa, how can anyone listening follow you on social media, follow your podcast? Now's your time to give us some details.
So you can listen to I Think She's Offside on iTunes and SoundCloud. You could also follow us on Instagram and Twitter by the handle She is offside, and you'll see like this animated icon. Yes, that's me. I'm a co-host. And my personal social media is Lipa_Nessa. Lipa written as Lipa_Nessa, spelled Nessa. And yeah, that's the same for Twitter and Instagram. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you want business ideas and want to listen to my business stuff, yeah, go on LinkedIn. You'll find it there.
LinkedIn, the place to go, eh? LinkedIn, gotta love it. Lipa, that's fantastic. And yeah, your podcast is really good. I've had a listen. And for those who obviously listen here, please go and check out Lipa's podcast. It's well worth a listen. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I do appreciate that a lot.
Thank you for having me. It was very nice to finally sort of catch up virtually.
Yeah, it was a bit different, wasn't it? It is a bit
It
different.
was, yeah. But I like
yeah.
it. It's a new norm, right?
Yeah, for the time being. We'll see if it stays this way post lockdown. I guess we'll find out. Probably not. For anyone listening in, you can also follow Halftime Cuppa on Twitter as well, using our handle at halftime_Cuppa. My personal account is at DannyCook1996 on Twitter and Instagram, should you wish to follow. As mentioned at the very start of the show, all of the previous episodes are available now for catch up on our website, halftimecuppa.com, on YouTube as well, just search in Halftime Cuppa. And then finally, the new one on iTunes, just by searching Halftime Cuppa. We managed to get it on there finally.
Yes, I
know. Apple gave in. They finally gave in. They let us on here. God knows why. But anyway, we're on there now, which is fantastic. Lipa, thanks again for coming on. Please stay safe. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope to speak to you again soon, Lipa.
Likewise. See ya. Bye.
See ya. Until next time, stay safe, everyone, and goodbye.